best mistake that I learned from early on was
And today I'm here with
Timothy Connor. I'm the CEO and founder of Synnovate. At Synnovate, we help companies and brands evaluate, enter, launch, and succeed in the Japanese market.
Timothy. What made you decide to start a business here in Japan?
Well, this is actually my third try, to be honest. So the first one was quite a number of years ago when I started a design business. And I did that for about 4 years, made some great mistakes that I learned from. Then fast forward about 10, 15 years, I started a consulting business. And one of my clients asked me to join the company. And so I spent 12 years working as the number 2 in my previous employer. So this time, great timing, I finished an interim managing director position with the company. And I was trying to figure out, what do I do next? How do I position myself? And I came up with the idea of Synnovate as a company that sort of embodied all of my skill sets. And about 2 months later came March of 2020 and COVID hit. And so that was the beginning of my run through COVID with my new startup, Synnovate.
You mentioned a lot of things there. One of the things you said is that you had a lot of great mistakes. What were some of these great mistakes?
The best mistake that I learned from early on was I was trying to be the designer, the salesperson, and the fabrication management person all in one. And it was just too much for one person to do. And I was unable to sort of let it go and let other people help me at the time. And so that was my big learning, number one, is if you want to scale, you need partners, and you need to turn things over to partners and let them help you.
Got it. There's a lot of people here who want to start a business and they're considering if they should have a partner. What should they do in terms of getting that partner?
Great question. I'll tell you, if you have somebody that you work naturally with well, it's great to have a partner. The thing is, when you actually found the business, it's really important that you decide who's going to be the decision maker. Because if you go 50-50, for example, on capital or ownership, what happens when you have an argument? Who decides? And this is the biggest thing that people don't want to think about. I mean, you're starting a business with a good friend. You think, we'll always agree because we always do agree. Well, sometimes you don't. Life happens, changes happen, and things come around. And so that's the one thing that I would say to people. It's advice that I got, and it's advice that I give too. Keep as much ownership as you can early on. And if you can start as a solopreneur, great. I say start like that and work with partners.
For you, when you're looking for a partner, what are the specific attributes that you look for in a person?
I'm looking for very specific skill sets. So if it happens to be a market research, a market overview project, then I look for the proper partners who has the skill set to do the kind of research I need to do, or who has the partners who have the right channels of distribution that I need to work with at the time.
Is that the only thing you look for?
Well, no. Actually, what I look for in partners is the same thing I would look for when I'm hiring people as well. Is number one is integrity and character. I've learned over time that you need to hire. You shouldn't hire off a resume. You need to hire off a character, because you can teach skills. People can learn skills, but they can't learn honesty and they can't learn integrity. And so that's really the big thing that I look for, apart from specific skill sets.
How do you test for character and integrity?
Yes, it's hard, and you can't do it in 1 or 2 or 3 meetings either. I mean, I really think it's a process of getting to know somebody really well, and I don't mean going out drinking, etc., but it's having meals together, sitting down, talking about things, talking through various scenarios, etc., and getting their ideas about how they would approach things. And so you start to learn their approach to business and whether it gels with yourself or not. And it could take months, actually.
If someone wants to start a business, but they want a co-founder and can't find a good one, should they start the business anyway?
I think absolutely. One of the other things I say is, if somebody asks me, when is the best time to start a business? I'll say it's yesterday. Second best day is today. If you have the resources and you have the idea and you know what you want to do. But I would say, yes, get started as soon as you can, as soon as your resources will allow it.
How does someone know when they're ready to leave their job and start a business in Japan?
Wow, great question. There's a number of things that hold people back. There are you've got the golden handcuffs.
Okay.
Great salary and great title in your company, and maybe you've gotten to the point where you're sort of the work that you do, you know it really well. You think, well, anybody can do this, or not anybody can do it, but I know it really well, and so I'll just leave. But it's harder to leave golden handcuffs than you really think. Those paychecks are nice. The second are family handcuffs. If you've got a family, if you've got a partner, if you've got kids, those are very real things to consider, because the money isn't going to start coming in the next month or the second or third month like your salary would. Those are probably the two biggest things that hold me back from quitting a job and starting a business.
So, how can people overcome them if they find themselves in that situation?
Well, one thing you can do is you can start on the side. So I wouldn't call it a side gig, but I would say you start small, start on the weekends, start in the evenings, start during the holidays, and start slowly building up the resources, the network, the people that you need to know, the partners that you need to know, and get those pieces in place so that when you're ready to sort of really pull the trigger, you've got people in place, you've got things in place, and at the same time, you've saved up your start a business money as well.
What are some of the misconceptions that foreigners have about starting a business in Japan?
Well, I think it's the how fast business is going to come around. It's business does not come around that quickly. It takes a while to get customers, etc. And I think that's one big misconception. The second one is that it's hard, because it's not hard to start a business in Japan. Yes, there's paperwork. Yes, there are visa issues, but you can work through those. They're just like skills that you need to know. And so starting up a business is not hard. There is the language issue. If you don't speak Japanese well, you may be limited to the English speaking or whatever your native language speaking market is. But those are niche markets that you can look at as well.
If someone has started a business but they feel they're at a dead end, should they continue or pivot to something else?
Well, I think when you start a business, one of the most important things to have is a North Star. I call it a North Star. It's like, where do you want to get ultimately? What is your ultimate goal in your entrepreneurship journey? You start up on your entrepreneurship journey, and you have some goals. It could be to sell the company. It could be a lifestyle business. It could be something else to solve a social problem. But that's your North Star, and that's where you're always going to be aiming towards. And so if on the road through the journey, if you find, and you should be checking your North Star all the time, if you find that you can't see your North Star as well as you should, that's a signal to stop, think about where you are, look at the data that you have, and don't make an emotional choice, but look at data, and then look at pivoting in a different direction. I mean, it could be a different product, it could be a different service, it could be working in a different market as well. But I think it's important not to make the emotional decision, but make the decision using the data, whatever information you have, based on, are you still pointed at your North Star or not? And how you get there, as we know, if your North Star, it doesn't really matter where it is, you can take any route to get there, as long as you get there ultimately in the end.
How can people find their North Star and how do they make data-driven decisions?
North Star is something that North Star is going to be something that you have deep inside of you already. And this is what I really want to do. And it could take you a couple of tries. I mean, for me, this is my third try before I found my North Star, which was helping people enter and succeed in the Japanese market. And so when you have a North Star, you'll feel it. It's like, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to go as well. Finding the data is a harder struggle. It's going to be a little bit more tricky to find the data. But look at all of the things in the market. Look at your market markers, the size of your business, what's going well, what isn't going well, why aren't they going well. You can try the 5 whys of Kaizen. You ask yourself why questions to get to the actual root of why things are not going well. And I think it's important to use that rather than just an emotional decision. Well, this doesn't feel right anymore. I'm going to do something else now.
It sounds like you're saying to utilize systems at that point. And if so, how do people create the proper systems?
Well, I don't know if systems is what I would call it necessarily, but I think that people should, when they're starting a business, they should know where they're going, what they're looking at, what market am I in, what channel am I in, am I making traction, am I getting traction? One of the things that maybe the most important piece of data is, am I making measurable progress every day? And one step forward is measurable progress. You know it's one step. And that's probably some of the most important data that you have. Does my step forward today take me closer to my North Star or not?
Is that something that they can evaluate themselves, or should they have somebody look to make sure that those steps are bringing them to their own North Star?
Well, I think it's the entrepreneur has to do it themselves. They have to know.
Okay.
And it's something you have to be really honest with yourself about. Taking first steps can be fearful. It's scary sometimes. But taking the first step is energizing and freeing as well. So I think that the entrepreneur is the one that has to be very lucid, clear with themselves, honest with themselves about, this is not working. I need to try something else.
What was your greatest fear when you started a business?
Yeah, I was kind of fearless, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Unfortunately, and probably I should have feared how much capital I had a little bit more than I did, for number one. I also probably should have thought a little bit more about when will the cash really start coming in. I really, really overestimated the cash flow, and still do. I mean, it's one of the things that I watch most closely right now is cash flow.
Why do you think you overestimated that?
Well, I overestimated how soon money would come in, and there's all kinds of things, but one is just payment cycles. You know, if you do a project with a large company, some large companies, for example, in the US, they pay in a 3-month cycle, 3 months later. So you're working, doing the project, finishing, you finish the project, and you're still waiting 2 months for the money to come in. That's a long wait. And then there's simple things like if you're using for example, payment systems, the money doesn't come in for another 2.5 months sometimes. So I think that's what I didn't have a clear view of when I got started.
If you were to give yourself advice when starting a business, what specific advice would you give yourself?
If I started a new one, something else, probably get more capital together early on. Make sure I had a year's worth of expenses of capital set aside for the business, not life expenses. Life expenses also, but for the business. I would also probably do what I did this time, the same thing again, which is I spent about a year, about 12 months, really massaging what Synnovate does. So I can say now that Synnovate helps brands evaluate, enter, launch, and grow in the Japanese market. But it took me about a year of sort of massaging all of those to figure out what are the skill sets, how do they work for me, and that really helped sort of crystallize what Synnovate's going to do. And that's that is my North Star, so to speak.
How can someone know if they're the right type of person to start a business?
Great. So I'm going to use that to segue into something that I came up with this last couple of years that I call strategic leadership. So strategic leadership refers to 5 archetypes that I came up with. And they're not things like emotional intelligence, which everybody needs to have, but there are 5 types of leadership skills. One is what I call the launch leadership. And these are the skills that you need to get something off the ground, whether it's bringing a product into the country or starting a new business yourself. And it's very much a chief everything officer kind of skill set. Some people have it. Some people are not natural at it, but can still do it. Others are natural at it. The second type is called growth leadership. And this is the person who's has the skill sets to take a whole bunch of moving parts in a new business and pull them all together, put the operational and management systems together to get the company ready to scale. And there are different types of growth leaders, of course, but growth leaders and entrepreneurs, founders, are often really, really strong, powerful combinations. The third type of skill set would be transformational leadership. Now, some people have an innate ability to come into a situation in a business, small or large, look at the business and say, you know what, you're stalled. I think I know how we can pivot in this business. And so they're able to help transform the business as well. The fourth type of leadership is something that I call authoritative leadership, because this is leadership in a crisis. Okay. When a crisis comes up, and it could be, it could be anything from a change in regulatory rules. It could be 3 of your employees quit on the same day, leaving you with 3 employees only. Anything that's crisis-wise, and it's a skill set that allows you to sort of be calm, rally the troops might be the wrong term, actually, to get the troops pulled together, get them settled down, and get them pointed in the right direction again. It's very much a calming thing. And the fifth type is what I call advocate leadership. And that's when you spend a lot of your time advocating for what the business does as well. Now, some people are stronger in one leadership area than others. Some people are strong in launch leadership, and they're definitely, if you love putting things together and getting things started and getting all your friends together for a party, et cetera, you're probably a launch leader and you're probably a born entrepreneur.
How can they figure out with data which one they actually are?
I don't know that it's data as much as it's the skill sets. When you think about these things, now some people have many of the skill sets, and some people are able to grow from launch leader into growth leader. I'll give you a good example. The founder of Mercari, Shintaro Yamada, he started as an entrepreneur, straight one, and his first company was sold, and he joined as the CEO, and it wasn't what he wanted to do. It wasn't his North Star. And so he left, and he took a trip around the world. He came back and said, I want to do an online flea market. And that was the start of Mercari. And he was able to transition into a growth leader and then take that company, always transforming it, et cetera. And now he's really kind of an advocate leader. But he's an amazing CEO of Mercari. I wish that they could somehow take that and take it overseas to the US, but they've had some struggles with the US.
Do you think it has anything to do with personality?
Well, I think personality has a lot to do with it. If you can look in the mirror and be honest with yourself and say, I really like when things are really messy and lots of things moving around, et cetera, really like getting involved. But when it comes to the growth leader stage or organizing things, I really don't like organizing that much. Understood. Then you know. If you're I'm this way as well, and I know other people. I can do launch leadership, but I prefer growth leadership. So when I see a whole bunch of moving parts, the first thing I want to do is take all those moving parts and put them together. Create like a watch, putting a watch together, if you will.
Got it. All right, so it sounds like if maybe someone's good at Legos, they'll be good at having their own business.
Yeah, probably so. So. Yep.
A lot of people want to start a business, but they don't have any mentors. Do you think it's necessary to start a business?
Oh, I think, yes. If you can have a mentor or mentors, absolutely. I absolutely think it is. And the mentors can help you in a lot of ways, not just making introductions, but also giving you advice, sharing some of their experiences as well. So for mentors, I think if you're thinking of starting a business, a good place to start is to start taking part in a lot of the founder related and startup related events here in Tokyo. Start meeting people. I say this to people all the time. Start networking, meet people. If you have an idea, a business idea, throw it out there at people, see what the reaction is. If you do that again and again and again, you're practicing your elevator pitch, and 2, you're finding out if other people see your idea. Because sometimes you have a great idea, but you're the only one who can see it. And if a third person doesn't really understand it, then you need to think about, am I explaining it wrong? Is the idea valid? Do I need to pivot? Do I need to change my idea a little bit? But by all means, talk to other people, see who can be a mentor to you. The more you can do that, the more you'll start to, your ideas will crystallize. And I think that's how you get to the point where you find your North Star.
Oh, interesting. So the mentor's going to guide you to your North Star if you don't know what it is already.
Well, they probably won't know what it is, but their input will help you figure out what your North Star is. Some people will say things that might be, I mean, you might hear some truths that are painful, but pain is good. Pain is how growth starts, right? No pain, no gain, right? And so I think that mentors will give you a lot of advice. Some of it welcome, some of it not so welcome, perhaps. Not all is valid, but it helps you sort of crystallize your thinking. And it gets sort of the debris out of the way as you clarify where it is that you want to go. You continue to try different ideas with different people as well.
If you lost everything today, what would you do to build yourself back up?
I'd start all over the same tomorrow, the same thing. Hopefully I can use the same name, Synnovate, if possible. But the premise behind Synnovate and using these practice areas is working with companies and brands. And eventually, if I run into something that I think is fantastic for this market, I want to be able to get in and get behind that, if not 100%, 90%, and run a business again and run it with a group of people again. And so I would continue on that quest, on that searching for that as well. I haven't stopped today, and I won't ever stop doing it as well, because that's really the goal, is to find the thing that the business that I really want to either buy or get behind and run with. Probably that would be it. Yeah.
Perfect. Timothy, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Cinda.